All right, hey guys, what's going on? Needs more drums back in Rusinskiy for another episode of our Journey to 100,000 population series. We are almost halfway there and it has been very, very fun so far, but there is still a lot of work left to do. I feel like I get in the habit of jumping around a lot, so today I have a pretty ambitious goal and I'm going to try to stay focused. I have a specific area that I want to work in, and so I know the cinematic shot from the intro started over here in Obashanie, but that is actually not where we're going to work today. We're actually going to go jump back over to the same area where we built this huge addition last episode. I really want to clean up this area and just kind of make it flow together a little bit better, and then we can finally start kind of crossing the highway and getting over into our what will be our biggest city, which is Najea, and this whole area over here. So what I'm planning for today is, as you can see, we have a ton of industrial demand, and so I'm thinking that we can do some work to this area to make this a little bit better. I kind of threw this together pretty early on in the city just because I needed a spot to fulfill some of that demand and just kind of needed to quickly throw together some industry. So this area, not final. This is not what I want. I mean, we have a couple of recycling centers like thrown in here. I really don't like the way any of this looks. I'm going to keep some of it, some little pockets here and there of these old buildings, but overall I don't like this whole area at all. So what I want to do is kind of expand everything out to this highway, fill this area in a little bit. And I also want to jump over here in this big space and kind of have a nice little transition. So after spending some more time, on Google Maps and stuff, Russian cities and Soviet cities typically don't have, again, I feel like I've said this a lot of times, but typically there's no suburbs. There's no change from like this higher density stuff here to the suburbs. It's pretty much just like apartment blocks and then farmland, So I want to keep that going like right here a little bit. And, I'm thinking about kind of dragging this road out, having these two connect, and then having some kind of smaller road around here, like another main road. And then all of the space in this area here is going to be pretty open, probably a little bit more just either forest or like some agricultural areas. And then we can kind of ease into maybe a small industry center over here once we get on this other side of the highway. But for the area kind of in the middle here, I want to do something similar to what I did here. And obviously I'll fill in some of these gaps, make some more pretty big residential developments. Hopefully this will bring a lot of people into the city, and then we can kind of check the box on this whole area, and we could focus on maybe, it'll look relatively complete, hopefully. And then we could focus on some other areas, some other parts of the region, some of the other cities, because I still have a lot of stuff that's on my mind that I want to get built. So this is ambitious. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take me to do this. Hopefully I can get it done in one episode. I mean, it's going to get done in one episode, whether or not I show all the footage or not. But yeah, so I think we should just go ahead and jump in and get started. But before we do that, I do want to mention that a lot of people have been asking about the mod collection, for this region. So I do want to say that it is now in the description. I spent some time and tried to put all the mods in there that the mod list. I just combined the mods and assets into one collection, and the mod list should be pretty complete. But in terms of assets, I'm sure there are plenty of them in there that are, there are plenty of them that aren't in there just because I haven't gone through my entire library yet, my entire Steam library. So just bear with me on the assets. I mean, I'll probably, add some more as if I get some free time to go through my library. But for what it's worth, every single new asset that I will subscribe to, if I'd subscribe to any more, it'll be in there. So there's already a lot in there. A lot of the buildings, like these newer buildings here that I've used, and some other ones that I haven't used yet, but I will, especially like for the downtown and everything. There's some pretty big, nice skyscrapers and everything in there already. So don't worry about that. But yeah, all in due time. But at least in terms of mods and everything, they should all be in there. So, do with that information what you will. But hopefully you guys are happy about that. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the build. All right, everybody, welcome to the time-lapse part of the episode. So the reason that this is such a big time-lapse, and I feel like a lot of these episodes have been, but like a majority of them have been time-lapses lately, is because this is just a pretty large-scale build. This is a lot of footage that's been condensed into this time-lapse. I mean, this is like over 2 hours, I think, of building. And part of what made this a little bit more difficult than some of the builds in the past is actually the terrain. So this map seems relatively flat, but it's actually not. There's a lot of pretty steep hills and stuff, and it's almost like, you know, the elevation changes subtle over like a big area of land, so you really don't notice how much an area will change until you actually start to build on it. And especially like in an area like this, you know, where I'm trying to do something that requires probably a little bit more flat land, I had to get a little bit creative with how I decided to go about some of this, because, you know, this land actually isn't as flat as I thought it was. So you'll see a little bit later in the episode too, just some of the changes between, you know, the different height areas that you really don't notice right from the start. So to begin, I really wanted to put down some kind of rail access to this industrial area, since we didn't have any rail access before. You know, I think it's very, very realistic to have rail access to every major industrial area, and this definitely needed it. So see right here, we're just putting down the train station, and I realized that I forgot to change the tracks. I forgot that I could do that with the railway mod, so I might go back and replace that with the new tracks, so everything looks good. But yeah, it was kind of, you know, I was having a lot of trouble finding a place to put it, because that hill leading up to this is actually pretty steep, so I couldn't really put it there. You know, I figured this kind of crest of the hill here would be the best spot, and although it's close to the highway, you know, I had to get a little bit creative with what I did. And next, I wanted to put down this lemonade factory. So the lemonade factory is I think the only unique factory, well, not the only one, but one of the only unique factories that we can put down right now with the resources that we have. So I think it requires glass and crops. A lot of the other ones also require some kind of petroleum input, which we don't have yet, and you know, or just some kind of other product that we don't have yet. So this was the best one. It's super huge, and I didn't realize that it takes up this much space. And so again, I had to get really creative about what we were doing with this terrain, because, you know, it's definitely going to sit on some kind of hillside or something like that. And would this probably be here like in real life? I mean, maybe, you know, there are some areas where the terrain is like this, and so you just have to kind of work around it. And so thankfully, you'll see a little bit later in the episode, trees are super important here. They really help hide some of these uglier, you know, slopes and everything that are kind of peeking through around some of these buildings. So once you get the trees in there and everything, it really doesn't look too terrible. But for now, yeah, just, you know, you kind of got to trust the process a little bit and just sit back and, you know, kind of see how this is all going to come together. And so that's kind of what I struggle with a lot with these builds is, you know, I have an idea and I want to, you know, put a certain thing in a location, you know, some certain location, like for example here, you know, with this train station and with this lemonade stand. Is this the best area for this? I mean, you never really know, but sometimes you just have to kind of work and just keep building and building and building, and then all of a sudden, you know, you look back and you're like, oh, that actually turned out not too terribly. So with these other areas in this industrial part, I didn't really have much of a plan going in. Just kind of laid some roads down, you know, tried some different layouts and everything, and nothing too crazy. Again, this terrain makes it a little bit difficult to get something any more large scale kind of factories and things, but I did try my best to make this area look not as cluttered and a little bit more I don't know, like a sprawling industrial area, I guess. So yeah, so here just extending out this train line. I don't really have a set idea for what I want to do with this yet, but I figure that this train line will go over the highway and then partially into this other part of the residential area as well. So maybe we can have a connection there in the future. And jumping over here, we needed to connect up these main roads and decided to make another one of these homemade roundabouts. Very easy way to do this if you haven't known that you could build one like that. I highly recommend it. It's super straightforward in using those dirt roads, and, you know, sometimes even people use like pathways. It really helps get those angles right, and you can make it all really, really even. So again, here, just look at the massive height difference between, you know, these main roads and the hill there. You know, it's really, I mean, I've been battling this the entire episode, and it was really, really tough to work with this, to be honest with you. But again, you know, we came out all right. So can't really complain. Yeah, just upgrading the roads to these wonderful concrete highway networks. I think these are by Klus or Klus, however you pronounce it. I love these. I've had these in my subscriptions library for like literally forever, and I just never actually got around to using them. So yeah, perfect series to do that. But anyway, so I just kind of wanted to go through some of these industrial areas here and clean them up a little bit. You know, we had a lot of just random zoning just because I needed to fulfill the demand. And so I wanted to go back and kind of clean up some of these areas, make some little, you know, factory complexes and things rather than just having a bunch of individual buildings next to each other. And so, yeah, I think it turns out okay. And here and there, you know, I kind of forgot to do some things with the, I forgot that this was like an industrial building style. So as you'll see, I'm wondering here why my buildings that I just put down have disappeared. And it's because they're vanilla and they're not part of the style. So I'm like, wait, what? You know, but I always forget things like that. So I end up just plopping down a couple of these ones that are part of the content creator pack, and they stick around. So this part, these actually all up getting abandoned because they don't have enough city services, which is not surprising, but also kind of is surprising. But you know, who cares? I'll rezone them eventually. But yep, here, just like I said, putting down some of these trees, and I think that helps tremendously to cover up some of those imperfections. And same with this area, I didn't like it at all. And I mean, this was kind of part of, you know, this whole build was just kind of going around to these different spots and just kind of piece by piece, fixing some of these areas. And so I have these cool Soviet factories that I got from the workshop, and I like these a lot. I think they look really, really cool and help kind of bring this area together. You know, this mix of these large buildings and then just these small industrial buildings and kind of like smaller factories and warehouses. I love the diversity in the architecture and just the scale of the development. It really kind of makes it seem like, you know, you have these older buildings, but then at the same time you have some of these areas that have been cleared out and replaced with more modern industrial buildings. And I think that's really, really realistic. You know, you get to see that gradual change over time. It's this kind of a transitioning period for this city. So one thing that I am doing here, and you're going to see me do in a little bit as well, and just kind of repeat this, is taking some of these small like 2x2 buildings and just putting them side by side and kind of just copy and pasting this. And I don't know what it is about these, but if you look, again, I've been spending a lot of time on Google Earth, and here you'll see me make a big area like this. These kind of industrial areas in some of these Eastern European and like Russian areas have these little developments like this that are just these side-by-side kind of wall-to-wall little like storage unit looking buildings. Looks like little sheds that are just kind of scattered around like these industrial areas. And seriously, like, go check it out. There's tons of them. It looks, you know, I don't know what they are. I mean, it's very different than something that we'd see in the US, but it's kind of cool, you know. And so I wanted to kind of capture that in this area. And I think that it actually turned out to be pretty similar to something that you would find. And typically they're kind of on the outskirts of some of the industrial areas. So, you know, not something that you'd always find right next to a massive, like in the middle of a massive port area or anything, but something kind of between, you know, the industry area and like the, like a residential area, for example. And here, just filling out a couple of empty spaces. I think these kind of are needed and help, you know, bring a sense of life and something a little bit different in some of these areas. All right, now jumping over here, we have a start of the residential expansion that I wanted to get to in this episode. So similar to kind of what we did in the last episode, we're gonna focus on just large scale, higher density apartment blocks. And, you know, again, I think these really help, one, achieve our objective of bringing in tons of people into these areas, and two, it looks very much like something you'd see in a Soviet inspired city. And so I like the way that these turn out. I think going for these bigger city blocks really helps to, I don't know, it just kind of captures that look. There's not a lot of car centric infrastructure in these cities, and I'm so used to building kind of like a US style where, it's a lot of roads, all the grids are small, there's just tons of roads everywhere, tons of parking lots, everything like that. These places, not so much. It's more like you have your main roads and then you have everything connected together by pathways. So it's like these, larger areas of land, and then all of the, you might have some residential buildings, some commercial buildings on like a school or something, all kind of built into this one large city block. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. And with the way that the game behaves, you do need roads connected to your buildings just to make sure that they function. And I could use like pedestrian roads and stuff, but I think a nice workaround is to use these little like 1 tile wide alleyways. They kind of, allow the emergency and service vehicles to drive up to the buildings, but they also don't look like these super wide roads. They don't have like any parking or anything. So they kind of look like pathways in a way. And from a bird's eye view, I think they really help capture the whole look and really tie everything together. So you'll see me use those a lot in these developments. Now again, just like right here, exactly what I'm talking about. These little one-way roads, I think they fit in perfectly. Sort of like little driveways, kind of like little entryways, you know what I mean? So I really like these a lot. I think they help capture that look, and I like, using trees in these areas. I think they help make the area kind of come to life. You know how much I love using trees. I think literally it is night and day. But yeah, some of these buildings, they're really big. I mean, these have a lot of residents in them, and they span quite a length. I mean, look at that. They're almost like probably the equivalent to 2 American city blocks, if you're judging by that. But I mean, this is just kind of how it is. I mean, you look at some of these buildings, and like they all look the same. They all kind of just follow the roads. And again, I think this is just really coming together, and I really like how this is all going. So aside from this, if you're curious about any of these assets, I finally got around to making the mod collection. So it is in the description of the link to that. So I know there might be some that are not included, and I tried my best, but sometimes I subscribe to things and it might not be included in I try to keep a nice collection of everything that I've subscribed to, especially when I'm doing a series like this. But sometimes things slip through the cracks and are maybe left out. So apologies if there's something in here that you can't find. Let me know, and I'll try my best to find it for you and give you a link to that or whatever. So I try to keep it up to date, but again, I'm only human. I guess it's hard to keep track of all this stuff sometimes. But I did try to get at least most of the mods and everything in there, and the buildings too. So hopefully that will all work out. And I know you guys have been asking for that, so you're welcome. But yeah, again, just kind of finishing up some of these areas, and I mean, a lot of copy and pasting. And you know what? I'm not sad about it. It just is what it is for these types of builds. I think it helps capture the look. Like I said, it's very obvious that a lot of these buildings are pretty similar. I mean, that's pretty much how these developments were built. It was kind of a one style and copy and paste it. And so now just kind of taking a look at some of the city services that we might need around this area. Just put down this school. We actually end up using, putting down another school as well in this, what seems kind of like a smaller area, but since we do have a pretty close proximity of high density buildings, we have a lot of people, a lot of families living in these, kind of smaller areas. So we do need a lot of schools to keep our citizens educated. And actually, once I put this down, I even noticed that even our high school demand is very high. I should probably think about putting down some other kind of university in this area. So we do have a pretty large need for education. And I kind of get carried away with, putting down some of these buildings, and I often forget just how many people I'm actually bringing in. So, just for reference, I mean, look, we're already at almost 50,000, and we started the episode at like 44. So just this small area has brought in like almost 5,000 people already, and it's pretty crazy how quickly you can do that with buildings like this. So I'm just going to keep on doing this, and we'll kind of just see what happens. And we look at that. We did reach 50,000 right there. So we got the Megapolis milestone finally, which is really, really cool. I don't even know if I've ever really gotten that in this game naturally. So that's exciting. I'm happy that we were able to do that. And I also just realized that that one-way road right there at the top left of the screen means that people can get into those that apartment block, but can't get out. So I actually need to go back and fix that and make it a two-way road. Oh man, sometimes you just overlook little things like that when you're building quickly. And this was definitely one of those times where I was, kind of whipping this together. Not a ton of time spent on detail, just kind of wanted to get the expansion done and kind of, fill in some of these essentials. So, we have just buildings, pathways, some parks, schools, and parking lots. And, pretty much, oh, and trees, of course, we'll get to trees. But, that's pretty much all that you need to make these areas really look lived in. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. You don't need to spend a ton of time putting down a bunch of decals and stuff. And, I know I can, and people do, and I think it's really awesome, and it looks great. But sometimes I don't want to do that. I don't feel like I have the time to, I want to get this, kind of done. And I'm more focused on the bigger picture rather than like these small individual areas. So, I want to zoom out and have the city look complete rather than, just spending 3 hours on one little spot and then it's all surrounded by empty land and you got to spend another 3 hours, in the area next to it. So that's just kind of not my preferred style of building. But again, the people that, have the commitment and stuff to do that it's awesome. So yeah, see, I think this detail looks fine, to be honest. Just put down, like I said, a couple parking lots, a couple parks, some pathways to connect everything up. And I think it looks pretty good. And in a minute, we're gonna go back in, add in some trees. Here's our other school using the old SimCity 4 school, which, by the way, if you haven't seen my SimCity 4 series, go ahead, check that out. It's been a lot of fun jumping back into the old game and giving it, a second look after 20 years. That game's 20 years old. It's actually pretty ridiculous when you think about it. I remember going and buying that and really got me into city builders and just, I mean, PC gaming in general. But anyway, it's enough of that. Let's go ahead, put down some trees, and jump back into a live play. All right, check it out, guys. So back in just a little bit of a quick live play here, just to recap kind of what we did. I know it is not all that I said I would do. I know I said I would try to fill in this whole area, but this was just taking quite a bit longer, than I anticipated. I should have known that taking this industry part actually took me the longest time because I didn't realize how steep the terrain actually was. I mean, like, just look at the height difference, even like, between the road there and the highway. It's pretty substantial. So trying to find the way to work with this actually was pretty tedious. And I feel like I found a nice balance. I kind of like that it's a little bit more spread out. I don't like everything being super crammed and congested. Plus with like industry, it is nice to have a little bit of space between the buildings. And of course, the trees kind of help hide some of those areas too. And I know sometimes, you might think it's a little bit too much or like too dense of trees around some of these areas, but I don't think so. I think, like from a bird's eye view, it looks pretty good. And not to mention, like in the real world, when you're looking at, if you're on a train or driving along, like I think it's hard to see just how many trees there actually are, but there are actually quite a bit, So when you kind of look at like an overhead satellite view of things. So I like it. I like some of these new buildings. I really like this new area. It looks very, very typical of the style that I was going for. I mean, I'm actually really happy with it. And I know, like, I don't think it's cheating, to kind of copy and paste these buildings, because that's literally what this architectural and, urban development style was like back in the day. It was literally just like copy and pasting building designs, and everything was prefab and, pretty easy to put together. So I like this a lot, and I'm really happy with it. So yeah, so for the future, I'm anticipating, I didn't plan on this being a really dense area. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, I thought that this may have been more of a agricultural transition, But the more I'm thinking about it, the more it kind of makes sense to like not have that. You know, we have this train line going through here. I figured why not maybe do something here like a passenger station on this side of the city, since we do have this very dense housing and all of these developments over here. We probably got like, you know, 15,000 people just living in this little radius right here. So I think that would be really beneficial to have something like that. We have this train station over here. We have this shopping district, and I was going to do something similar with this space here, like a shopping district. And then maybe if we can throw in a little bit of industry over here, I kind of have an idea of what that could be as well. But it all depends. This terrain is also very, very steep comparatively. I mean, you know, look at the height difference between this road and the track. We actually have quite a bit of a slope to work with here. So that's why I'm going to try to build everything on this track. But anyway, that is a problem for a later time. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I definitely enjoyed making it. The more and more that I look at, you know, these types of cities, you know, on Google Earth and everything, and the more and more that I build in this style, the more I really am liking this series, and I'm liking the way it's turning out. And I think it's going to be really, really cool once it's complete. And I'm really excited to get over here. And again, I know I keep saying that, but it's coming. All right, I promise. I just want to fill out this area a little bit, kind of get this city done. Nothing's ever really done, but, you know, to a point where I think it looks complete. And, you know, we can always expand it later, but like once we jump over here, it's just going to be awesome. I got so many good assets that I'm just dying to use. I'm excited to get into the public transit. Just so many good things to look forward to. So I hope that you guys are excited as I am. I will catch you guys in the next episode, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. And jump back into Cities Skylines 1 if you want to. You know, still a great game. As you can see, there's still a lot of stuff you can build, and you know, some really, really great assets out there. So take care, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.